We are live, Hawk fans. I hope you guys are doing very, very well wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening, this is going to be a quick video, very quick video. I recently, in lieu of Iowa going, hitting the mark of 3-3 in a, quite frankly, very winnable first half of the season, I have received quite a few questions regarding where do the Hawkeyes go from here and kind of just my assessment on everything. And as I said, this is going to be a quick video. And so I'm just going to dive right into it. Be sure to like, comment, share. Again, the channel continues to grow only because you guys are the best fan base in the world. And without further ado, let's get into this. Well, where to start? I think the main story just 2 weeks ago was different than the story is right now. Right now, there's probably a few main themes going on. And a couple of weeks ago, I think there was still a ton of hope. There were certainly quite a few fans who had zero hope that the offense would improve, and they're looking to be more and more correct. At the time, it wasn't necessarily that I was wrong or that it was that I'm upset that they disagreed with me, because I'm not one bit, I promise. But they would be more correct at this point than I was. My response to them when they would say, basically the comment was was often, Iowa will be lucky to be 6-6. They'll be lucky to be 5 and whatever. They'll be lucky to win 8 games. And my response would be, well, it's a very winnable West, which I will check back to. It's a very winnable West, and Iowa still has an elite defense and special teams. And it is now looking like my take is not necessarily wrong, but it's not as correct. The offense is terrible. And I think that brings me to my next point. I'm trying to keep this in an ordered fashion, okay? Which is that last year, things on offense have been bad for a while. And I think that is important to be honest about. Every Iowa fan to be honest about, which I will also return to. This is not a new thing. Brian Ferentz's offense pretty much peaked around the victory over Ohio State. You could maybe say that there were some good things against Mississippi State, somewhere in there. There were splashes here and there of some good offensive outings. But regardless, the past 2 years, not the past year, 2 years, the offense has been terrible. The difference is that when you look into the advanced statistics, Iowa this year is no longer getting every bounce to go their way. The luck percentage is no longer in the Iowa Hawkeyes' favor. This current Iowa team is not bad at getting takeaways, and it's more specifically interceptions, but they're not a historic takeaway and interception team like we saw last year. And that makes a huge difference. And also, two more small yet big differences is last year we had Charlie Jones, who would help propel Iowa forward, because every little difference maker would help Iowa win, on top of their very, very stout defense and terrible offense. So no more Charlie Jones. That's a difference. And last year, Caleb Shudak was pretty much automatic. It's not that Iowa's kicker is bad this year, but it has not been automatic since the jump like it was last year. So when you assess this offense and where things are, you have to look at last year also. It's not like this is a new phenomenon. Now, going back to my storyline thing. 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of hope, and you fast forward to now, and the hope has pretty much completely diminished from the Iowa Hawkeyes. If you take into it, yes, the game still needs to be played, but if you take into account that Ohio State is a likely loss, the best the Iowa Hawkeyes could finish, assuming that's a loss, is 8-4. Now, I will be the first to admit that Iowa has the talent to pull off the upset. This team has more talent than the team that upset Ohio State in 2017, so anything's possible, okay? But it's likely they're going to be 3-4 after 7 games. And now people are turning and asking questions. And I think the main situation, the main thing that this is pointing out is that Brian Ferentz, Kirk Ferentz, and Gary Barta are now significantly on the hot seat. I will be the first to admit that I have a few things. One, been a Brian Ferentz, not supporter, but defender. I think I was one of the most fair Hawkeye contributors out there. I was the only one who shared personal experiences with Hawkeye players that I had, including Cavante Martin-Manley, who never spoke a bad thing about the Iowa Hawkeye program, Kirk Ferentz, or anybody, Chris Doyle, or anybody. I was the only one who shared that. I was the only one who pointed out that half of Iowa's coaching staff was African-American. I was the only one that pointed out how well Iowa has done in taking African Americans from certain communities and getting them into the NFL. Now, they did it themselves too, okay, granted, but they were doing it at a phenomenal rate and changing their lives dramatically. And when you look at a story like that, when you look at a story like that, you have to take everything into account. And then there was the other things such as, there were allegations that weren't necessarily congruent. They weren't consistent, things like that. So the point is that I was not a supporter, but I think I was fair to Brian Ferentz and to Chris Doyle. Okay. Or as fair as it can be. Now, some of you guys will hear what I just said and said, well, no, it's the opposite. You were totally biased towards them. What are you going to do? Whatever. And this brings me to the nepotism situation. And I totally forgot about this. But when Brian Ferentz was hired, Gary Barta said that he was the one that he made a comment to the effect of, it was in line that it was checked off by Kirk that in a nutshell, Kirk made the decision and he made a joke about it. Okay. And then he basically backtracked and said that was not the case, that he was the one who signed off on it, because of course that would be considered nepotism if that is fully true. And so I'm not even saying that the nepotism thing is fully true, that Brian was not, did not have some experience and things like that. I'm not even necessarily trying to go down that road. All I'm saying is that the light is shining bright. The seat is as hot as it has been on that story. And even if Iowa were to win out, I don't think the Iowa fan base will ever forget about this time frame and how much it has exposed with this Iowa Hawkeye football team program. So where does that leave us? Okay, where does that leave us? Well, and my original question at the beginning of the video, what can be done? What to expect from this Iowa team moving forward? And my answer is simple. There's my optimistic, hopeful viewpoint, expectation, and then there's the more realistic, pessimistic viewpoint. My optimistic viewpoint for what to expect from this season is Kirk Ferentz allows Brian Ferentz to have more control and more freedom in making his play calls. Iowa gets Deontay Vines back. They get Keegan Johnson back. the running backs start to get totally healthy. The O-line improves as they are young. And Iowa finishes the season 8-4, which would still be, in my opinion, which is another very big, important point here, would be a letdown for this season, considering the talent that this Iowa team has. And secondly, that the Big Ten West is down. There are 2 fired coaches in the Big Ten West, one from the team that was expected to win the Big Ten and one from a different rival in Nebraska, which is never an easy game for whatever reason. Sometimes it is, but not always. If there was a year to take advantage of a down Big Ten West, it was this year. And so it is, I won't forget that. And you shouldn't either, because this is, Iowa should have taken advantage of a down Big Ten West. Now, my pessimistic viewpoint of this, and I would say more realistic viewpoint, and towards what to expect, what are the expectations for the rest of the season, is that Iowa finishes 7-6. That to me, or 500, a game above 500. That to me, that's the best they're going to do. Do I think it's possible that they finish 8-4? Maybe. I think it's possible, but I don't think it's likely. I don't think we see any improvement from the offense. Any improvement we see will be marginal and too little, too late, which is another glaring question, which is, why does it take the offense as a unit to be average? Why does it take so long for them to just be average? Why does every other team, why does their offense work immediately as the season starts? It's not acceptable. And so I think that that's the more realistic expectation, that Iowa's defense is great, but we see more of the same, more really close games, more heartbreakers, more heartaches, things like that. And the offense, Spencer Petras, average as he's been for the past 3 years. And same thing with the offense. And it's too bad, but it is what it is. Now, the last thing I want to address before I bounce out of here is most of the Iowa fans, I think, are fair. They are not cruel, and the criticism is more than fair. But I always end up seeing 1 or 2 people who end up saying, well, they're just kids. They're just kids. Leave them alone. You're not a true Hawk fan if you don't blindly support them, which to me is total nonsense. Number one, they are not kids. They're young adults. They're getting paid. They are now basically professional athletes. They are not kids. They are young adults. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a little bit of grace towards them, because you can. And I think Iowa fans do, by and large. And I don't think it's an overreaction to be totally fed up with multiple years of a below average offense. That's the only way you get change, is by voicing your opinion, which you are allowed to do as a paying customer of this program. So I start to get sick and tired of seeing people who make all of us feel bad for having any sort of critique towards the coaching staff, who are adults. They're grown men, and the kids who are young adults getting paid for the sport that they play. They get paid. Not as much as the NFL, but they still get paid. Okay? Do not forget that. So, guys, this is brutal. I've said it. I don't feel any differently. The 3-3 is not even close to what I expected for the season. And either way, your boy will have you covered every step of the way. I thank all of you who have, subscribed to the channel. I will have you guys hooked up with a basketball preview video. That should be sweet. Be sure to like, comment, sub. Takes 1.5 seconds to sub. And I will see you guys next time. DBAP, don't be a pussy, Willow. In fact, our feelings, because your feelings just matter. Love you guys. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.